I still remember the message that ended everything. We changed all the locks. You don't have a home anymore. Let's see how brave you are now. Haha. No call. No warning. Just that single text glowing in the dark like a spark before an explosion. I stood there in my tiny apartment, the rain tapping against the window, my reflection ghosted in the glass. For a long moment, I just stared. Then, against all logic, I laughed, quiet at first, almost calm. Because that wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning. People used to call us the perfect family on Willow Lane. White shutters. Sunday roasts. A house that looked like safety from the outside. But perfection is a mask that fits tight enough to suffocate. I was the good daughter, the reliable one, the fixer, the peacekeeper. My father, Charles, believed love meant obedience. If something broke, he called my name before he reached for a tool. Lena, hold the ladder. Lena, grab the wrench. By 16, I could fix a roof leak better than most handymen. By 17, I was helping pay the mortgage. By 21, I was covering their emergencies. Every transfer, every payment, every patch of paint felt like love, or what I'd been told love was. Mom, Evelyn, always smiled when I helped. A sharp smile, pretty and polite. Family doesn't count debts, she'd say. I used to believe her. Until I realized that was just her way of saying, everything you give is owed. Everything we take is love. My sister, Grace, 2 years younger, was the golden one. Our little dreamer, Mom called her. Grace never had to lift more than a makeup brush. When Mom gifted her a gold bracelet one Thanksgiving, I stood there with a paper plate in my hands and a smile that didn't reach my eyes. That bracelet probably cost the same as 3 months of my rent. But family doesn't count debts, right? Years passed, and I kept fixing, paying, covering, until one night, the truth finally whispered itself into the cracks. I came home late from work, shoes soaked from the Portland rain. Through the kitchen door, I heard my name. She doesn't realize all her help was voluntary, Mom's voice said softly. When we sell the house, it'll just be our names on the papers. I froze. Sell the house? Our house? The one I'd painted, repaired, and financed piece by piece? Dad chuckled. Classic Lena. All heart, no business sense. Grace's voice was smaller, hesitant. But won't she expect something? Mom snorted. Expect what? Gifts don't buy ownership. I pressed my hand against the wall, the air thick with the smell of leftover dinner and betrayal. Gifts. That's what they called the years I gave them. The nights I stayed up patching spreadsheets and drywall. The hours I traded for their comfort. I went to my room and sat in silence. My laptop glowed on the desk. I opened a blank document and started typing, every payment, every bill, just this once. Line by line, I was writing the history they'd erased. Then the message came. We changed all the locks. You don't have a home anymore. Let's see how brave you are now. Haha. Locks. Home. Brave. Each word landed like a hammer. I didn't cry. I didn't call. I just laughed, because for the first time I saw clearly, they hadn't shut me out, they'd freed me. That night, I made a folder on my laptop called Proof. Receipts, emails, transfers, every scar in numbers and ink. Dad always said, if you want something done right, do it yourself. Fine. I would. By dawn, I had built my first wall, not with wood, but with evidence. And as sunlight crept across the blinds, I made myself a quiet promise. I wasn't fixing anything for them ever again. This time, I'd dismantle everything they built on me. Morning came like nothing had happened. Sunlight spilled through the blinds, the same way it had the day before, as if the universe didn't care that my family had erased me overnight. The air smelled like burnt coffee and old dust. I sat at the small table in my apartment, staring at the spreadsheet that had become my lifeline. Every row was a memory. Every column a scar. March 3, 2018, roof repair, $2,400. May 15, 2019, plumbing, $980. June 20, 2020, mortgage payment, $1,500. December 12, 2021, Grace's college fund, $3,000. Each number was a little piece of me they'd stolen while smiling across the dinner table. I spent the next week digging through my digital graveyard, old emails, screenshots, bank statements. I hadn't realized how much I'd kept. Maybe a part of me always knew I'd need proof one day. Maybe some corner of my heart had never really trusted them. On the fourth night, I found an email from Dad titled Emergency Roof Leak. Attached was the invoice in my name, not his. That was the first real crack in their perfect story. I sat back in my chair and whispered, "Got you." For years, they'd treated me like background noise, the daughter who fixed everything but never spoke up. But silence isn't weakness. It's a weapon. I started documenting everything, organized, color-coded, backed up to the cloud. If they wanted a war, I was going to be the quietest soldier they'd ever underestimated. Then came the call. The name flashing on my phone made my stomach twist, Grace. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Hey," she said, her voice honey-sweet. "I wanted to check on you. You must be so upset." "Upset?" I said. "About what?" "Well, you know. Mom and Dad just felt you needed space. Things got complicated." Complicated. That was her word for betrayal. "You were in on it, weren't you?" I asked quietly. Silence. Then a nervous laugh. "Don't be dramatic. It's just a house." "It's not just a house, Grace. It's my life's work. My money." "Oh, come on. You always say that like you're the only one who's ever helped. They did so much for us too." I closed my eyes. The sound of her voice made the air feel heavy. "You mean, they did so much for you," I said. "Wow. You really need therapy," she snapped, her sweetness cracking. "You sound unhinged." Then the call ended. I sat there for a long time, phone in hand, listening to the echo of her words. Unhinged. Maybe I was. Maybe that's what happens when you spend your whole life keeping others together. Eventually the hinges that hold you in place just snap. The next morning, I took the bus to Thornwood Estate, the house I'd practically rebuilt. I stood on the sidewalk, across from the white shutters and blue hydrangeas. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Fresh paint. Trimmed lawn. Even the porch light worked, the one I'd rewired myself. I should have turned around. But something in me refused to leave. A moving truck idled in the driveway. Two men carried out boxes labeled Grace, Closet. I recognized the handwriting. I walked up, heart pounding. One of the movers looked at me curiously. "Can I help you, miss?" "I used to live here," I said. "I just wanted to take one last look." He shrugged. "I don't think anyone would mind." Inside, the air smelled like paint and lemon polish. My footsteps echoed on the hardwood floors. Every inch of the place whispered memories, Christmas dinners, arguments, quiet mornings fixing what others broke. In the hallway, I saw something that made my chest tighten. The framed family photo, the one from my college graduation, was gone. In its place hung a new one, Mom, Dad, and Grace smiling in front of the house. No trace of me. It was as if I'd never existed. That's when I noticed the envelope on the hallway table. Addressed to Charles and Evelyn Hartwell, the deed transfer. The sale hadn't gone through yet. My hands trembled as I read the date. 2 days from now. I took a picture. Then another. Every page, every signature line. When I left the house, the sun was already sinking. My phone buzzed, another message from Dad. "You're trespassing, Lena. Don't come back. You're embarrassing yourself." I typed back, "Don't worry. I'm done coming back." Then I deleted his number. As I walked away from the only home I'd ever known, a strange calm settled over me. For the first time, I wasn't the fixer. I wasn't the helper. I wasn't their daughter. I was the storm they didn't see coming. It's strange how betrayal can sharpen your senses. You start noticing things you used to overlook, the tone in someone's voice, the weight of a pause, the way people talk about you in the past tense even when you're still breathing. I spent the next week living like a ghost. I didn't call anyone. I didn't cry. I just collected. Emails, voicemails, transaction records, every thread that could pull their perfect story apart. At night, I'd spread the documents across my floor like puzzle pieces, tracing lines between them. Dates. Payments. Signatures. There was a rhythm to the deceit, almost elegant in its cruelty. They'd used me like a silent investor, my money for their comfort, my effort for their pride. The more I looked, the more I saw their fingerprints all over everything. Dad had listed my contributions under family support. Grace had withdrawn from the joint account I opened for emergencies. Even the loan I'd taken to fix the roof was tied to their tax returns. They hadn't just erased me. They'd written over me. But that's the thing about paper trails, they never really disappear. I knew what I had to do. And I knew exactly who could help. His name was Ethan Carraway, a real estate attorney I'd met years ago when I was trying to refinance the property. Back then, I couldn't afford his retainer. This time, I wasn't asking for favors, I had leverage. We met at a small cafe downtown, the kind that smelled like cinnamon and rain-soaked wood. Ethan looked surprised to see me but didn't ask questions. "You look determined," he said, after a long silence. "That's one word for it." I slid the folder across the table. "I need to know if I have a case." He flipped through the papers, emails, invoices, payment confirmations, his brow furrowing deeper with each page. "You paid for most of this place," he said finally. "If they transferred the deed without your consent, that's fraud." "It's complicated, but possible," I said. "Possible," he confirmed. "Messy, though. It'll rip the family apart." "They already did that part," I said quietly. He studied me for a moment, maybe searching for anger, maybe for regret. But all I felt was clarity. "I'll take the case," he said. "But you have to promise me something, no contact. No emotional outbursts. Just evidence." I nodded. "I can do that." For the next few weeks, I became someone else, efficient, focused, unreadable. While they planned their future in my house, I worked behind the scenes, filing documents, tracing transactions, building the case brick by brick. Every night, I'd imagine their faces when they realized what I'd done. Not because I wanted to hurt them, but because I wanted them to see. To finally understand what it feels like to lose something you believed was yours. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed again, an unknown number. "Lena." It was Mom's voice, thin and shaky. "Please, can we talk?" I hesitated. "About what?" "Your father's sick," she said quickly. "He's been having chest pains. It's stress. All this fighting, it's too much." Her words hit something soft in me, something that had almost healed. "Then maybe he should have thought about that before cutting me out of my own life," I said. "You don't understand." "No," I interrupted. "You don't. You think you can destroy someone and then cry when they stop coming back." She was silent for a moment, and I heard her voice crack. "I miss you." I closed my eyes. The truth was, I missed her too, or at least, the version of her I used to believe in. "Goodbye, Mom." And I hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. The guilt twisted inside me like a knife. But every time I thought about calling her back, I remembered standing in that hallway, seeing my face erased from the family photo. That was all the reminder I needed. 2 weeks later, Ethan called. "We got the preliminary hearing," he said. "If the judge accepts the documentation, we can freeze the property transfer." My heart stuttered. "When?" "Monday. Be ready." The days leading up to it were a blur: court filings, notarized affidavits, emails from Ethan full of legal language I barely understood. But through it all, I felt alive. Like for the first time, I was steering my own story. The morning of the hearing, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my jacket. My reflection looked like a stranger, calm, deliberate, unshakable. I thought about Dad's voice calling me embarrassing, about Grace's laughter, about the way they'd replaced me in that photo. "Not anymore," I whispered. The courthouse smelled like old wood and disinfectant. Mom was there, pale, tight-lipped. Grace sat beside her, scrolling her phone, pretending not to see me. Dad didn't show. When the judge called our case, time seemed to slow. Ethan spoke with quiet precision, laying out the proof. Payments. Invoices. Records. My name on every receipt. Grace's face changed as she realized what he was showing, that their perfect plan was crumbling. Mom wouldn't even look at me. When it was over, the judge didn't smile or frown. He just said, "There's enough here to warrant a full investigation. Property transfer is temporarily suspended." It was a single sentence, but it felt like air after drowning. Outside the courtroom, Grace brushed past me. You really had to do this, she hissed. You're destroying everything. No, I said softly. I'm just taking back what's mine. That night, I walked home through the rain. The city lights blurred through the drops on my coat, and for the first time in months, I let myself cry, not from sadness, but from release. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, it felt like I wasn't losing. And somewhere deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The investigation took months. By the time it ended, the leaves had started to fall dry, brittle things that crunched under my shoes as I walked to the courthouse one last time. I'd learned to live with the silence. No more late-night phone calls. No urgent texts from Mom pretending to care. No more pictures of Grace's smiling family popping up on my feed. Just quiet, the kind that used to scare me, but now felt like peace. Ethan met me on the courthouse steps, holding a thin folder. His expression was unreadable. You ready for this? He asked. I've been ready for a long time, I said. Inside, the hearing was short, almost anticlimactic. The judge reviewed the final report. Fraud. Misrepresentation. Illegal deed transfer. The words echoed in the wood-paneled room like small explosions. Then he said the thing I hadn't dared to imagine. The property at 218 Thornwood Lane is to be returned to its rightful owner, Ms. Lena Cole. Just like that. Years of manipulation, erased by a few sentences on paper. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just breathed. When I walked out, the air felt sharper, cleaner. Ethan put a hand on my shoulder. You did it, he said. No, I said softly. I just stopped letting them do it to me. He smiled. That's still a win. It should have felt like victory. But victories, I learned, rarely feel like they do in stories. They come quietly, with exhaustion and the faint ache of everything you had to lose to get there. I spent that night back in the house, my house. The key felt strange in my hand. The front door creaked the same way it always had, and the smell of lemon polish still lingered in the air. It was like stepping into a memory that had tried to forget me. Most of the furniture was gone, but the walls were mine again. I walked from room to room, fingertips brushing the edges of door frames I'd once painted. In the kitchen, I found an old mug I'd left behind, chipped, stained, stubbornly intact. I poured coffee into it and sat at the table. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was mine. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name in my mother's handwriting. For a long time, I didn't open it. Then, curiosity won. Inside was a single page. Lena, I'm sorry. I don't know how to make things right. Your father isn't well. He refuses to talk about what happened. Grace says she hates you, but she cries when no one's watching. Maybe we all lost something we can't get back. I hope one day you can forgive us. I don't expect it, but I hope. Mom. I read it 3 times. The first time, I felt nothing. The second time, anger. The third time, something like grief. Not for them. For the version of me who'd spent her whole life waiting to be loved correctly. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Some things didn't need answers. Weeks passed. The house slowly came back to life, new furniture, new light, new air. But something in me had changed. I didn't want to rebuild the past. I wanted to start something that was mine. So I listed the house for sale. People called me crazy, fighting to win it back, only to let it go. But I didn't want the walls. I wanted closure. When the realtor asked why I was selling, I told her the truth. Because it's done serving its purpose. The day I signed the papers, I drove out to the property one last time. The air smelled like rain, and the hydrangeas in the yard were just starting to bloom. I stood on the porch, remembering everything, the laughter, the shouting, the years of trying to belong. And then I whispered goodbye. Not to the house. To who I used to be. A few months later, I moved to a small apartment in the city. It wasn't fancy, cracked tiles, a view of the laundromat across the street, but it was mine, and that was enough. Sometimes, I still think about them. I wonder if Dad ever forgave himself. If Grace still believes she won. If Mom still sets 3 plates at the table out of habit. But those thoughts don't hurt anymore. They just remind me that I survived. One evening, as I sat by the window, the sun melting into the skyline, Ethan called. How's the new life? He asked. Quiet, I said. Peaceful. You sound happy. I think I am. There was a pause on the line. Then he said, You know, most people don't come back from something like that. I didn't, I said with a small smile. The old me didn't. He laughed softly. Fair enough. When we hung up, I watched the last of the sunlight fade from the buildings. The city hummed below, alive, chaotic, indifferent. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel erased. I didn't feel small. I felt free. And maybe that's all any of us are really fighting for, not revenge, not recognition, just the quiet freedom of knowing you finally belong to yourself.